346 lives extinguished. 2 brand-new, state-of-the-art airliners completely destroyed within 5 months. And a corporate price tag exceeding $20 billion in fines and losses. This isn't just a story about a tragic mechanical failure. This is the story of how one of the world's most respected engineering giants was brought to its knees by a single hidden line of software code placed there by greed. For decades, the unwritten mantra in global aviation was simple: if it's not Boeing, I'm not going. They were the undisputed gold standard of safety, integrity, and American engineering prowess. So here is the central mystery. How did a company run by brilliant engineers transform into a corporate gambler that bet human lives against stock market performance? The answer doesn't begin with the first crash. It begins years earlier in a desperate boardroom meeting. To truly understand the depth of this tragedy, we have to look back at Boeing's golden age. Historically, this was an engineering-led company. The people at the top weren't just accountants obsessed with the bottom line. They were plane builders who respected physics above profit. Their crown jewel was the Boeing 737, the reliable, short-haul workhorse of the global sky for over 40 years. It was safe, predictable, and beloved by pilots. But by 2010, the industry landscape was shifting dramatically. Their main European rival, Airbus, launched a massive threat, the A320neo. It was modern, quieter, and crucially much more fuel efficient than Boeing's aging 737. Airlines loved it. Orders started pouring into Europe. Boeing was caught completely off guard, resting on its laurels while Airbus started stealing their lunch right out from under them. The real panic set in when American Airlines, an exclusive, loyal Boeing customer for decades, called Boeing CEO Jim McNerney with devastating news. They were about to defect and place a massive order with Airbus because Boeing had no competitive product ready. This was unacceptable. The board realized if they didn't have an answer to the Airbus Neo immediately, they might lose the single-aisle market forever. The stakes turned into absolute corporate survival. Boeing faced a critical fork in the road. Option A, spend 10 years and billions of dollars designing a clean-sheet aircraft from scratch, missing the current market window. Or, option B, take the 50-year-old 737 airframe and quickly strap huge, new, efficient engines onto it. Driven by intense time pressure and demanding shareholders, they chose the shortcut. They decided to patch up the old plane. And that decision created a lethal physics problem. Here is the core technical issue that started it all. The new, fuel-efficient engines were massive. They literally couldn't fit under the low wings of the classic 737 design. So, engineers had to mount them higher up and further forward on the wing. But this shifted the plane's center of gravity dramatically. Under full thrust, like during takeoff, these heavy, forward engines acted like a lever, naturally pushing the nose of the plane upward violently. To visualize this instability, imagine a pickup truck carrying way too much heavy cargo hanging off the back tailgate. When you hit the gas hard, the front wheels want to lift off the ground, and you lose steering control. In an airplane, if the nose pitches up too high, an angle of attack, it causes an aerodynamic stall. The wings lose lift, and the plane falls out of the sky. This was a critical flaw they had to mask. Instead of redesigning the airframe to handle the new engines properly, which would cost too much time and money, Boeing applied a digital Band-Aid. They created a secret software system called MCAS, Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. The idea was simple. If software sensors detected the nose pitching up too high, MCAS would automatically swivel the tail stabilizer to push the nose back down, without the pilot doing a thing. But here lies the catastrophic flaw that doomed 2 flights. To save costs and simplify certification, Boeing designed MCAS to rely on data from just one single external sensor on the side of the plane. In aviation, you never rely on a single point of failure for a critical system. If that one little vane malfunctioned due to a bird strike or ice, it would tell the computer the plane was climbing when it wasn't. And the pilots? They weren't even told this system existed. Why keep such a critical system a secret from the very people flying the plane? Simple arithmetic. If Boeing admitted that the new MAX handled differently than the old 737 due to its engine placement, regulators would require pilots to undergo expensive simulator training. That costs airlines millions and takes significant time. Boeing's entire sales pitch against Airbus was, it handles exactly the same, no new training needed. Admitting MCAS existed would destroy their main selling point. So the active deception began. In early drafts of the pilot flight manuals, MCAS was actually mentioned. By the final version, all references to it were deleted. Boeing deliberately convinced regulators at the FAA to downplay the system's power, essentially allowing Boeing to self-certify its own safety. They effectively buried the existence of an autonomous system that had the capability to wrest control of the aircraft away from human pilots. On the surface, the gamble paid off beautifully. The 737 MAX became the fastest-selling plane in Boeing's history. Airlines ordered thousands. Stock prices soared to record highs, and executives earned massive bonuses. Champagne corks were popping in Seattle. But nobody outside a small, tight circle knew that every single shiny new MAX rolling off the assembly line was a ticking time bomb, waiting for one fragile sensor to fail. It wasn't like there were 0 warnings. During initial flight tests, some pilots noticed strange handling characteristics when pushed to the limits. One test pilot even complained that the plane felt squirrely. But the pressure to meet delivery schedules and beat Airbus was immense. In the new corporate culture, raising safety concerns that might delay production was seen as being anti-company. The warnings were silenced by schedule pressure. This silencing of engineers was the symptom of a deeper disease. Years earlier, Boeing had merged with McDonnell Douglas. The culture shifted almost overnight from a company led by passionate engineers to one ruled by aggressive cost-cutting accountants and Wall Street analysts. The company ethos changed from build the best plane possible to maximize shareholder value at all costs. The compromised 737 MAX was the ultimate product of that new culture. So here is the recipe for disaster that Boeing cooked up by late 2018. A plane that was aerodynamically unstable due to rushed design. An aggressive hidden software system called MCAS designed to force it straight. A fatal reliance on a single, easily breakable sensor. And thousands of pilots globally who had absolutely no idea they were flying with a silent killer nestled deep in the plane's computer code. On October 29, 2018, the bomb went off. Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta. Minutes later, a single angle of attack sensor malfunctioned. MCAS falsely thought the plane was stalling and aggressively pushed the nose down toward the ocean. The pilots fought back desperately, pulling back on the yoke with all their strength. But every time they pulled up, the software pushed back down harder. For 11 terrifying minutes, they wrestled a ghost in the machine until they lost. The plane dove into the Java Sea at 450 miles per hour. 189 people were dead. The aviation world was in shock. What was Boeing's immediate response? Did they ground the fleet? No. They quietly issued a bulletin to airlines about a previously undisclosed system, but publicly they subtly pointed fingers at the Indonesian pilots and maintenance crews. Their narrative was clear. The plane is safe. These foreign pilots just didn't know basic flying procedures. They doubled down on denial. But pilots weren't buying the spin. In closed-door meetings, American pilot unions furiously confronted Boeing executives. They were outraged that a system capable of crashing the plane had been deliberately hidden from them in manuals and training. Audio leaked of pilots yelling at executives, realizing they had been flying blind for months. Yet, amazingly, the 737 MAX kept flying globally. Boeing insisted it was just a minor training issue. Less than 5 months later, the unthinkable repeated itself. March 10, 2019. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. Same brand new plane model. Same phase of flight. Same terrifying trajectory on the radar. This time, the pilots even tried to follow the emergency procedures Boeing hinted at after the first crash. It didn't matter. MCAS was too powerful, too relentless. 6 minutes after takeoff, the second MAX cratered into the ground, killing all 157 aboard. The world could no longer deny the truth. The second crash shattered Boeing's firewall of denial. China, a massive market, was the first to act, ordering all MAX jets grounded immediately. Europe's regulators followed within hours, breaking their traditional lockstep with American authorities. Yet, shockingly, the FAA, the regulator supposed to protect the public, hesitated. They spent days publicly defending the plane's airworthiness, showcasing just how deeply Boeing's influence had penetrated its own overseer. The pressure became unbearable. Finally, President Trump himself had to step in and issue an executive order grounding the fleet in the United States. It was a humiliating moment. Boeing's stock went into freefall, wiping out tens of billions in market value overnight. The world's safest airplane manufacturer was now the owner of the world's most dangerous plane. The curtain had fully pulled back on their gamble. Let's do the cold calculus. Boeing tried to save money by avoiding a redesign and skipping pilot simulator training, a saving that might have amounted to a few $100 million, perhaps $1 billion at most. To save that billion, they ended up spending over $20 billion, sacrificing 346 lives and shattering a century of hard-earned reputation. It was, without a doubt, one of the worst business decisions in industrial history. This tragedy is a textbook example of Goodhart's law in action. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Boeing's leadership made the stock price their only real target. Safety, engineering integrity, and long-term reputation were demoted from core values to mere obstacles in pursuit of that quarterly number. When you optimize solely for profit, you inevitably de-optimize for safety. The MAX eventually flew again after nearly 2 years of grounding and software fixes. But the damage didn't end there. The cultural rot had set deep. Years later, we still see quality control issues plaguing Boeing, from loose rudder bolts to door plugs blowing off mid-flight on brand new planes. Fixing software code is relatively easy. Fixing a broken, profit-obsessed corporate culture is a generational challenge that Boeing is still failing to meet. Boeing's story isn't just about airplanes. It's a warning for our current era. We see the same move fast and break things mentality in Silicon Valley, in AI development, and in autonomous driving. It works fine for a social media app where a bug means a failed post. But when you apply that ethos to safety-critical hardware that carries human lives, breaking things means killing people. Physics does not negotiate with stock options. The Boeing 737 MAX saga stands as a grim monument to what happens when finance triumphs over engineering. Greed may win a few quarterly earnings calls, but in the unforgiving reality of aviation, the truth always wins in the end. 346 people paid the ultimate price to remind us that safety isn't just a slogan in a manual, it's a moral imperative that cannot be compromised for speed or profit. Boeing's reputation is tarnished, perhaps forever. But this story raises another uncomfortable question. If Boeing cut corners to compete, what about their rival? Is Airbus truly the saint in this duopoly, or are there skeletons in their closet too? In the next video, we're going to investigate the other side of this high-stakes aviation war. Click here to watch the dark secret behind Airbus's rise.